battle tested history, number 7.
Yeah. Lucky 7.
Lucky 7. I am your host, Jeff Thompson. With me, as always, is Scott Baker. The year is 1888, and the Whitechapel district of London is being savaged by a madman. 134 years ago tomorrow, the famous so-called Dear Boss letter is released to the newspapers, naming the most famous serial killer of all time, Jack the Ripper. So that's our discussion for today. Is Jack.
Mm-hmm.
Plus on the 30th will be the anniversary of the double event.
Ah, yes.
The double event.
Stride Meadows.
Stride Meadows. And there are so many theories that I don't think modern technology can count them all.
No.
Some say that the so-called canonical 5 aren't anywhere near enough. That he killed at least one more before Polly Nichols,
Mm-hmm.
which was the first one of the canonical 5. Some saying that the Dear Boss letter, most I think saying the Dear Boss letter was a fake.
Yeah.
Written by some enterprising journalist, which I would believe because they were selling papers like mad at the time.
Are you implying that a journalist would make something up?
I know it sounds like great. I know it sounds like crazy talk, but
wow.
I know. But it had been almost an entire month. Polly Nichols was killed on the 31st of August. Annie Chapman on the 8th of September. And then nothing until the 30th. So on the 27th, looking to gin up some readership, I can very easily buy that theory. But anyway,
it's possible.
Shortly thereafter, I think it was like the 2nd of October. I could be wrong about that. It may have been just before the double event. Another letter was received, including a package.
Yes.
The package was was addressed from hell.
Yeah.
And the package contained part of a human kidney. Now, forensics being what it was in 1888, they could never tie it directly to any of the victims. They believe it belonged to Catherine Meadows, but they couldn't confirm it. But that's where the title of our movie comes from.
Yeah.
And for a discussion of that, let's go to Scott.
All right. We based tonight's discussion around the Johnny Depp movie From Hell.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fantastic movie. I love the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think the setting is very accurate. It shows what it was like to live in the Whitechapel area. It showed what the women went through that were hookers. But as for a Jack the Ripper theory, it grabs one of the most popular ones and really dramatizes it. But honestly, I don't think it makes for a great movie. It's not good history. But to be honest with you, I've never seen a historically accurate, I should say, Jack the Ripper movie. I was saying to Jeff earlier, there was one that came out in 1988 with Michael Caine. It was made for television. It was supposedly based on the sealed transcripts and files from Scotland Yard. And they were opening it up for the 100th anniversary, and they were going to reveal who Jack the Ripper was, and it never did. It postulated a theory, and if I remember, the theory was similar to From Hell, but it never, none of the movies have ever really come close. Even to this day, nobody can say who Jack the Ripper was. There's 1,000 theories. There's no hard fact.
No, there aren't. We were having this discussion before the show started, but
Yeah.
personally, I think whoever did it must have either died shortly after the Mary Jane Kelly murder,
Yeah.
or somehow been stopped, incarcerated, sent to the nuthatch, whatever.
Yeah.
Because while they didn't know anything about serial killers at the end of the 19th century,
right,
we know a lot more about it now.
Mm-hmm.
Lucky us.
Yeah. We've had a few more than they did in London in the 19th century.
One or two, maybe.
Yeah.
And what we've learned from that is that, number one, their MOs don't really change.
Right.
And number two, they don't stop. They don't just suddenly stop. And after the murder of Mary Kelly, the Ripper murder stopped, supposedly.
Yeah.
The original police files contained as many as 11 victims. Not 5, 11. Recent information and use of geoprofiling has added one more. That of Martha Tabram, who was August 7th, before the supposed first one, Polly Nichols.
She was in the movie, wasn't she?
She may have been. She was stabbed by a bayonet. And she was stabbed from the front rather than from behind, which is what he did with the other 5. But she was stabbed like 39 times.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that she got so savagely ripped,
right,
and then 3 weeks later, the Ripper murder started,
right,
but no other copycats were going on during that time.
Right. Yeah.
Either she really pissed somebody off, or Jack did her first.
She is in the movie. The character, she was played by Samantha Spiro. I remember her. She was the first one killed, and the movie was talking about. I'm like, well, she wasn't the first one. It was Polly, but
it looks like now. If you look at it forensically, it seems pretty likely she was also a victim. The MO changed slightly in that, again, she was attacked from the front.
Right.
That had to be really messy.
Mm-hmm.
All the other ones, he came from behind them and cut their throats.
Yeah.
Blood sprayed that way.
Right.
Away from him. So.
Well, I mean, they say serial killers don't change their MO. They learn and they adapt it. Exactly. So, I mean, it is very possible that after he wound up getting the blood spray, he thought, next time I'll cut her throat from behind.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe.
Like I heard like one group pose a theory that, it was the carriage. How could they do this? It had to be somebody rich and famous because, you can't just cut somebody up in the street. But like the book I was reading said, remember, these were streetwalkers. They knew all the places where they could disappear for 10 or 15 minutes and nobody would see them. That gave Jack more than enough time. They technically led him to their murders. He could do what he had to do, finish it up and disappear, and then they wouldn't find the body until later.
Plus, Whitechapel, well, in the first place, you could post a picture of Whitechapel in 1888 under the heading of squalor.
Yeah.
And it would be the perfect definition.
Yeah.
There were 76,000 people living in the Whitechapel area at the time. That was 189 people per acre.
Yeah.
That's packed in there.
Yeah.
In abject poverty, with nowhere near enough places for people to sleep.
Right.
You had people 9 to a room, a single room.
Yeah.
It showed in the movie them sitting up asleep on a church pew.
Tied with rope so they didn't fall over. Yeah.
That was accurate.
Yeah. That was the best part of the movie to me, showing the horrible conditions of what it was like. And the fact that nobody gave a shit about these girls.
Nobody.
The scene when, oh God, and I can't think of his name, but when the guy who was like one of the first pimps was threatening Mary Kelly and the cop came in and the cop told her, get out of here. And he looks at Mary Kelly in front of the cop and says, you're dead. Cops couldn't care less.
Couldn't care less.
Yeah. It was just these poor girls were victims.
Yeah. Queen Victoria and the rest of the monarchy and the Parliament and everything else.
I did.
Couldn't give a rat's ass about anybody in Whitechapel. The lowest of the totem pole were the whores.
Yeah.
So they may as well not have existed as far as Queen Victoria was concerned. At least until bad publicity started. Hey, you got a butcher operating down there. Do something about it.
See, now I wonder how many of those other 11 were copycats.
Well, that's possible. And some of them, one of the 11 was strangled.
Yeah.
A couple other ones were just cut.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't really have the butchery. And mind you, most of that 11 would have taken place after Mary Kelly.
Yeah.
Mary Kelly was the one he did inside.
Yes.
And what he did to that woman defies description.
Yeah.
It was monstrous.
Look up the photograph of it. In the movie when the cop comes out and when the cops and even the coroners are throwing up, it's not that far-fetched because what he did to her, the first time I saw the photograph, I thought it was like a modern fake. This was, somebody saying this is what it probably looked like. I mean, she was brutalized. He had the time.
Yes.
He or she had the time, had the quiet place to do it where nobody would catch him or her. I say her because I was fortunate. Back in 91, my first wife and I took a trip to London, and we went on a night tour of Whitechapel with an author who had written a book on Jack the Ripper. And we went to every location where the girls were found murdered. Of course, most of them have changed. But he related, which I have not seen anywhere else, but it's in his book. I wish I could remember his name. He related one theory that it was a wet nurse and that she was inexperienced and she gave Polly Nichols, she performed an abortion on Polly Nichols and butchered it badly. So she went ahead, chopped up Polly Nichols' female parts, and then committed 4 more murders afterwards. So people wouldn't be looking at her, they'd be looking at a male sexual serial killer.
Well, yeah, but Polly Nichols was found
Mhm.
on the side of the street,
Right.
wide open area.
Right. And
Who,
I
who
don't,
in their right mind would have performed an abortion there?
yeah. And I don't see a wet nurse, dragging Polly Nichols there. The other thing that sort of makes me disregard this theory is, okay, I could see if Mary Kelly was killed the same way. Mary Kelly was slaughtered. I mean,
he went ape shit on her.
yeah. I mean, she was literally cut apart like a piece of meat.
Yeah.
So it doesn't fit. It doesn't fit the description.
Mm-mm.
No. Now there is this theory that it was Prince Albert, as in the movie From Hell.
Mm-hmm.
And I've heard the two theories. The one that was the primary one in From Hell was that he did have an affair with a hooker. She did give him a child, and what they were doing was the royal court took away the child. This is one of the reasons why Abilene, didn't seem to be, not Abilene. Oh God, I can't think of the name of the chief of Scotland Yard right now. Keaton or something wasn't pushing this, and that they finally, each of the young women who was murdered were aware of this.
Mm-hmm.
Another theory related to Albert, which I also don't buy, is that he had gotten the syphilis, which he did have, from one of the girls, and that he was going through. Abilene, though, was Johnny Depp's character. He was the detective hunting down the case. I'm referring to the chief of Scotland Yard, his boss, who had the word Jews, Juwes, erased from that, from the hallway, which has always got me suspicious. But that theory that I was talking about was that he went through and was killing hookers, the prince, until he found the hooker that had given him syphilis, and he destroyed her, butchered her apart, and that's why it ended. But again,
yeah, and it was Dr. Richard Gull.
Gull, yeah,
I think was the actual murderer.
Well, in the second theory, Gull wasn't involved. It was Albert himself that was doing the murders. In the first part, when they were trying to get rid of the evidence that the rightful heir of England came from a common woman, that was the one that Gull was supposedly. I forgot to check up on Gull to see what happened to him.
He remains, as far as I know.
Yeah.
And that's to me, I think whoever did it had to have died. And there are a couple of the suspects who did, or one in particular, the prime suspect, many people believe, a guy by the name of Kaczmarski.
Yeah.
He was thrown into an institution in 1891. And between the end of 1888, which is when Mary Kelly was killed, November of 88, between then and 1891, they had doubled the police presence in Whitechapel. And they became suspicious of him in the immediate aftermath of Mary Kelly, because they went house to house.
Yeah.
They said, fuck your rights. We're searching everybody's house right now. And they did. And Kaczmarski came under their Kosminski, I think.
Kosminski, yeah.
Kosminski. Kaczmarski was an XO of mine. He could have been the Ripper too. You never know.
He was thrown in a mental house in 1890, and he lived there until hang on a second.
He died there, as far as I know.
Yeah, he well not lived there, but he was incarcerated there until he died on March 24th, 1919.
Yeah. So he was also the two people who were highest up in the investigation believed it was him. There was a book, a memoir written by one of them, and he gave it to the other one. And the other one wrote in pencil Kosminski's name in the margin of the book. That was later passed on to his nephew or whatever.
And if it was him, there's no way that the police would have let it be known because he was a Polish Jew.
Right.
And if it ever got, because one thing nobody ever talks about, there was a high level of anti-Semitism in that part of London at the time.
All over the planet at the time.
Yes, but I mean, and that's the theory that's used. There is in the movie, it's played out, and it's always bothered me. The fourth killing, I think it was Edo's.
Yeah.
When she was found in a hallway of an apartment building, or not an apartment building, but
behind it. Yeah, behind it.
And in the hallway was written, the Jews will not be the one who are not blamed for nothing, or something to that effect.
Yeah, it's completely grammatically incorrect, but
it wasn't JEWS. It was JUWES,
right,
which refers to the three Jews, Jubala, Jubalo, Jubilai, of Freemasonry.
I did not know that.
Yes, and the detective, Keaton, I think his name is, the one who told Abilene and the police, erase that, get rid of that. And he wouldn't allow a photograph taken. Okay, I can understand. The theory is he was afraid that the common Whitechapel person wouldn't know the difference between JUWES and JEWS.
And they'd end up with riots.
They'd end up with riots. But still, it was like all evidence was erased, even the evidence that would have been used only by the police. That makes me always wonder if there, and I don't buy the Prince Albert, I don't buy the Gull theory. It's fascinating, but I don't buy it. Always makes me wonder if whoever was doing this had a Masonic connection, which is one reason why it was just buried down.
Well, in the first place, if you wanted to create a textbook for how not to forensically investigate something, this case is it.
Yeah.
I mean, they would show up at the crime scene, and everybody and their grandmother would be walking all over it, trampling all the evidence, touching things, moving shit around.
Yeah, no, Tim.
Yes.
You're absolutely right, Tim. And back then, it was a much more important part of that upper class society. Back then, if you were admitted into the Freemasons, doors automatically open for you. Not today. It's not like that today, but
back then, yeah. Everybody who was anybody was a Freemason.
But it's fascinating. There is the theory, and there were people in the movie that were actual. The God, let me see if I can remember. Well, the guy that was the driver for Gull, he was actually a real life person. Let me see if I can find his name. Well, the Nichols gang actually did exist. So, but nobody believes it was. The only relationship was they called it the Nichols gang because of Nichols, but there was a second gang, and it was actually referred to at the time as the Old Nickel Gang. There was another gang like that was trying to shake down the prostitutes called, where is it? The High Rips, which some people think is where the name Jack the Ripper came from. I don't buy it.
I don't buy that, but Tim is your favorite. See, that explains a lot, Tim. So tell us, who did kill Jack? Who was Jack? Come on, you got to know. Didn't they teach you that with the secret handshake?
Tim can't say anything. I was a Freemason once for years. I've never heard them talk about Jack the Ripper case. But, when I first saw the movie, it was right after I'd become a Freemason. And I'm watching the movie and I'm like, holy shit, this ceremony is so bloody accurate. I was amazed.
Yep.
But I mean, there are a lot of other theories besides Kosminski. There was the let me see. There was the butcher Leather Apron,
which that never really went anywhere. Leather Apron, that was just it was part of the racial bullshit that was going on. He was they at first they couldn't conceive of the possibility that the person doing these heinous crimes survives the Alamo. Yeah, Tim. They couldn't believe these heinous crimes were committed by an Englishman.
Yeah.
They couldn't conceive of the possibility. So naturally, it had to be a Russian immigrant or a Jew, somebody other than a fine English citizen. Which, of course, is horse shit, but...
Well, the one that always got me, and I always wonder if it's accurate, not the story, was Thomas Neal Crean. He was also known as the Lambeth Poisoner. He was a medical doctor, which means he would have had the knowledge on how to surgically slice up the 5 victims, more surgically rather than butchering. And but he was also poisoned his victims with strychnine. And he was captured. He not captured. He was caught. He was put in jail, and he was executed. He was put on trial in October 1892. The jury deliberated for 12 minutes, found him guilty, and they brought him to the gallows. And as the gallows was put around his neck, just as he dropped, he screamed, "I am Jack the," and then the rope snapped his neck.
Right.
So,
but it couldn't have been him. It really couldn't.
I doubt it, because if he was killing 2 different modus operandis, it didn't work.
Totally different. Now,
I think he was just trying to grab some attention.
Crean was a sick puppy.
Yes.
It's the way he wouldn't just kill, he would marry these women and slowly poison them with strychnine.
Yeah.
He would slowly do it, and he would sit there and watch them suffer for months.
Yes.
He was a sick puppy.
A completely different level of sadism.
So, I mean, he was nuts, obviously. But Jack the Ripper, no. No, it's the same thing with the H.H. Holmes. The Devil in the White City.
Okay, yeah.
The guy who had the murder hotel
at
the Chicago World's Fair.
Yes.
There is speculation. A lot of people believe he was the Ripper. But again, a complete change in MO.
Yeah.
Complete change.
What do you think about that? Let me see if I can find it. That let me find his name here. I got a lot of pages open. That Jack the Ripper may have actually been James Maverick because they found supposedly his diary discussing what he did
Yes.
in his bedroom. Somebody had bought the house he had lived in, and while they were remodeling and they were tearing up the floor to his bedroom, they found a diary. And the diary apparently contained information about how the murders were committed that only Scotland Yard could have known.
Except that the diary was later proved to be a fraud.
I don't think the diary was ever proven to be a fraud, but it was never proven to be.
The family member
Right. He came out,
admitted that it was fake.
and then a year later retracted that, saying it was actually true.
Because he wanted more money.
And all the forensics they did on it, no one could determine, yes, this fits the time period, the ink fits the time period, the paper, or no, this is early 20th century. So,
well, there are those who claim that they prove it couldn't have been because it came from later.
yeah.
Who knows? Pick your documentary, pseudo forensics going on.
Yeah.
You know, who knows?
I mean, if I got to pick a favorite Jack the Ripper movie, it's Time After Time.
That's a pretty good one.
I loved David Warner as
good
Jack the Ripper. My favorite scene in that movie is when he's making Herbert, H.G. Wells, watch the TV and the violence and the murder, and he goes, Herbert, this is my time. I belong here.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Which does explain how Jack the Ripper just disappeared.
Vanished. It's possible. That's
You know
possible.
me, I'm a fan of time travel.
Mm-hmm.
So
Now, another good suspect, in my opinion, was this guy by the name of Charles Allen Cross, who, when Polly Nichols was killed, a civilian came upon the murder site and saw a man standing over her body. The man was Charles Allen Cross. The two of them then went and tried to locate a cop, which all they had to do was stand still.
Yeah.
And a cop would have showed up, but they didn't. And I believe Cross headed off in one direction, the other guy headed off in another one.
Mm-hmm.
The first one immediately gave evidence and immediately made a statement. Cross didn't come in until the second day of the inquest. He just suddenly showed up, gave his name as Cross. Turned out that wasn't his name. His actual name was Charles Cross Lechmere. And you could forensically look at where he lived based on the time of each of the murders.
Yeah.
And they were pretty much on his stomping grounds.
Yeah.
It could have been him. It might not have been him. The only difference is he lived until he was 71 and never killed again after marrying Nichols. Which, no.
Well, I'm not throwing any of these theories under the bus, but I always wonder, was Mary Nichols, was the brutality shown because he had the opportunity and the time and the privacy, or was it also partly, was it like the venting of whatever was inside this nut? And then after that, it was like almost like a psychological temper tantrum. And then afterwards, it was like, okay, I'm fine now.
Well, yeah, except that ignores human nature.
Yeah.
Once we've all crossed lines
Mhm.
in our lives. We've all gone places we shouldn't have gone. And the thing about once you cross a line, it becomes much easier to cross it again.
Yeah.
He definitely crossed a line
Yeah.
with with Mary Kelly.
Yeah.
That was such that we're talking 7 or 8 whole nother levels.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, you don't just stop after that. I mean,
No.
I guess you could argue that it so shocked him that he was scared straight, I guess. But no, I don't buy it. You look at some of these other serial killers that we know of
Mhm.
and the sick shit they got up to.
Yeah.
I don't buy it.
I mean, the case has so many holes in it, so many things that just don't make sense that it's very hard to pin down. And I
Mhm.
personally, I don't think we'll ever know who Jack the Ripper is.
No, I sincerely doubt it.
Yeah.
That unless someday some document is found where there's a confession and it turns out to be completely legitimate.
Yeah.
Even they supposedly had a shawl belonging to Catherine Eddowes, I think it was,
Yes. Yes.
that they then tested for blood and DNA.
Right.
Well, the shawl was never listed among her personal effects.
Right.
So that raises the flag right there. And there it turns out that the forensics were not that good. There are lots of mistakes made.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah, because I remember the blood tests. I can't remember. Actually, I can't remember. Did they link her? I thought they couldn't link her to the
they
blood.
linked her to Kosminski.
Oh, that's right. I
They
was trying
linked
to.
her to Kosminski,
Yeah.
which is right now these days, this week anyway, Kosminski's my favorite.
Yeah.
Next week it'll probably be somebody else, but this week is Kosminski because
Mhm.
he was incarcerated in the nuthatch
Yes.
and therefore couldn't keep killing. That's the thing that hangs me up. Is these guys don't stop.
Well, one thing that does point to Kosminski, you were saying that there were 11 murders. Some people say that there were, Mary Kelly was the worst, and therefore everybody thought it was over, but there may have been 6 others. The last murder, if I remember, was shortly before Kosminski was incarcerated.
Yeah, but he was under surveillance
Well,
at the
maybe they
time.
caught him.
Maybe. You never know. Nervous house.
Yeah.
It was just a case of nerves. I
Yeah.
don't know why I don't know why I stabbed her 117 times.
Yeah.
It was just nervous, I guess. I don't
I
know.
was offended.
That's it. That's it. You must have offended her. That's it. That explains it.
Yeah. No, I was like I said, I was very disappointed when Scotland Yard said they knew who it was, and they said they were going to release it on the 100th anniversary, and when they released it, they never said really who it was.
I know.
Caffeine, Tim, or lack of caffeine.
That's it.
Yeah.
Lack of caffeine. That could have done it.
Before my first iced coffee in the morning, I could hack the whole family apart.
Well, those Brits, they like their tea rather than
No, that's
coffee.
true. Yeah.
So,
Or their opium dens.
and they're opium dens.
In the movie itself, just quickly going back, phenomenal cast. I mean, the British cast in that was just among the best. they could get.
No,
Though I
yeah.
know a lot of people complained that the Abilene was played by an American.
Yeah, but Johnny Depp's a damn good actor. Whatever else you say about him.
I like Johnny Depp. I sided with him through the whole trial. You know,
But yeah,
granted, I know Amber Heard was the only one who gave a shit in that relationship. But
you
no,
had to go there.
I have the only movie Johnny Depp didn't do well in was when he played Tonto
Oh, yeah.
in The
Yeah.
Lone Ranger. That was like, what would you must have needed money for a lawyer. But other than that, every role he plays, he's brilliant.
Yep. One of my favorites is called Benny and June.
Oh yes.
When he does a Buster Keaton. That's just phenomenal.
Is that the one where he's playing with the forks and the
That's the one. That's just phenomenal. That kind of physicality, just incredible.
You know,
But
and,
anyway,
he becomes the characters Sweeney Todd. But again, we're starting to go down a rabbit hole.
yes, it's kind of like the those women have knowledge or something. Well, that's the theory of the movie.
Yes.
That they all knew about a child that Prince Albert had. So that's another reason that I don't think it could have been Prince Albert or Dr. Gull. Because they exclusively used carriages.
Yes.
Whitechapel was a maze. A lot of narrow alleyways, a lot of narrow avenues, a lot of cubby holes. It was just, there's no way you can get a carriage around most of that. So if they're using a carriage, that's fine, but getting from A to B, no, I don't buy it.
I can consider the carriage theory, except for now you have two people involved. You have Jack the Ripper and you have the accomplice. And Jeff, I'm sure you were involved in covert operations. If more than two people know a secret, it's not going to stay a secret long. And that to me would be the one, because you would think that at least one of them, if not Jack, that the other one, the cab driver, the coach driver, I should say, might have talked, especially if, as in, I think it was the 1988 movie, they caught him. They caught the coach driver and made him talk to who he was driving around.
Yeah.
But I remember that one. Yes, call up the local tobacco store. The other thing too is, and now I'm not sure, but would Prince Albert stand out?
He'd have been recognizable. So it couldn't have been him doing the killing.
Yeah.
There's too many people know what he looked like.
That'd be like William or Harry going down
to
the Whitechapel district and doing it.
Well, plus it's the same thing. Another one of the suspects was an American by the name of Tumblety, who had this gigantic handlebar mustache.
Yeah.
He was considered a suspect because he was later found having carnal knowledge with 5 men. Yeah, so they thought, okay, this guy's a deviant. He must be Jack the Ripper. Yeah. It doesn't fly.
No.
And there were people who saw who they believed to have been Jack the Ripper. And one of those witnesses did identify Kosminski, but refused to testify. He wouldn't give evidence. He said to the police, that's him. But he wouldn't say it in court.
Yeah, he didn't want to wind up victim number 6.
Or whatever. Yeah, so who knows? It happened 134 years ago. I doubt we're going to solve it tonight.
No. No, I don't think it'll ever be solved. It'll just be one of those. 100 years from now, there'll be two guys podcasting talking about Jack the Ripper and who it was. Of course, and then they'll have time travel, so they'll be talking about how it was Adolf Hitler. No, it was Julius Caesar.
Aliens.
Alien, yeah, of course.
It was an anal probe gone wrong.
Yeah.
5 times.
Oh shit, we didn't do the anal. Damn, that's what we're doing. But it's a good movie.
It's a good movie.
It's
And
a
the
fun
cast,
movie.
I mean, Johnny Depp and Robbie Coltrane. And, oh, shit.
Tim's got a point there. Yeah.
Yeah.
See, I always wondered too. If it had been, let's say it was somebody, not Kosminski, but somebody like Kosminski, an immigrant of Jewish origin or something, would they have just killed him? You know, I mean, who would have?
Yeah.
You know, who would have missed somebody like that? You know, they think he ran off, he got mugged.
Yeah, and even the cops themselves wouldn't have had to do it.
No.
I'm sure they had enough underworld contacts, and there were enough thugs and murderers, just normal murderers wandering around Whitechapel at the time.
Yeah.
They could have tapped one and said, "Do it for us."
Oh, for all we know, he was out walking around looking for a victim and got robbed and murdered, which would be ironic.
Yeah, it would. Can you imagine being the mugger who tried to attack Jack the Ripper?
See, I look at it, imagine being the mugger that killed Jack the Ripper. Now, there's street creds.
Round up the usual suspects. That's right.
Yeah. I think they did that once, I think they did that one time in the movie. Yeah, they did. They rounded up the Nigel's, the Nichols gang, and
yeah. So it was. Jack is. It's got everything you want in a serial killer story.
Yes.
Especially the ending.
Oh God, yeah.
Because, well, it's not just Mary Nichols, but the fact that that was the end. It just stopped.
Yeah.
As if Jack just vanished.
Yeah. Well, that's why some people have posed the theory that whoever the murderer was going after Mary Kelly for a reason. And that the other four, though they probably weren't friends, there's no evidence to prove that they knew each other other than acquaintances, that, you know, he was using them. And when he finally found Mary Kelly, and finally...
Unless Jack the Ripper was also Kaiser Soze. Usual suspects. He could have been Kaiser Soze. You never know.
Yeah.
Probably should be really damn old, but this is wild speculation. Anything's possible.
Oh, I know. Tim's right. It's the perfect mystery story.
It is.
And it's so, the murders are so bizarre and violent.
Oh yeah. The whole, you know, what was it, Annie Chapman.
Yeah.
Taking your guts and tossing them over his shoulder. What was up with that?
Yeah.
What was the point?
The only thing I can think of is if the murderer was trying to get his 15 minutes of fame, for lack of a better term. You know, I'm sure hundreds of murders took place in Whitechapel. I'm sure dozens of hookers wound up dead.
Oh, yeah.
But if you all of a sudden you start... Yeah, but if you all of a sudden you start slicing up 3 or 4 of them and...
Yeah. There is a great... I got it somewhere. There's a great novel about Jack. It's a fairly recent one. Let me look it up real quick. But it posits that one of the reporters covering the Ripper murders was what the hell was his name? Ripper. Of course, you don't find it when you're looking for it.
Of course.
Ripper Confidential. Night the Ripper. Yeah, Amazon is great unless you're in a hurry trying to find something out.
And we know it took place in 1888 because the post office got the package with the kidney across town the same day.
That's right.
If it took place today, it would wind up in Liverpool 4 months later.
Oh, yes, at least.
And I'm sure all of our British fans are going, yeah, he's right. He's right.
Shit. Oh, screw it. I can't find it. I'm not going to waste any more time. But yeah, but it's. Oh, what the hell? Name a contemporary author of the time.
Of that time?
Yeah.
I think Wells, Verne, Stevenson.
He wrote Pygmalion.
I was going to say Richard Harris. That's not.
No, that's not. But he wrote
Bernard Shaw.
George Bernard Shaw was, in this novel, George Bernard Shaw is a cub reporter who ends up writing the Dear Boss letter. But he befriends a college professor who turns out to be the Ripper. And one of the great things about the book, and this really isn't explained very well, the night of the double event, the reason behind the double event. Supposedly, Elizabeth Stride was the victim.
Right.
And there are those who say she wasn't, but let's just assume she was. And that Jack was interrupted. He had cut her throat, but couldn't, do the rest of what he did.
Right.
He never really explained how he got out of there.
I'm sure it's easy. I mean, it's like you said, it's winding streets, it's dark.
Well, yeah, but
if you see a guy with a knife slashing up some hooker, you're not going to go run to her defense.
To get out of there, he'd have had to go right past the horse of the guy in the cart who interrupted them. And he'd have had to go right past a packed Russian folk hall, some communist party, something. I don't know. It wasn't communist because they didn't exist then, but it was some kind of socialist Russian club right next to where that happened. So, number one, he had to really know the neighborhood. And he had to be blindly lucky to get out of there. So
Tim postulates a really good theory. Suppose it was a cop or a former cop. He knows the procedures. He knows the area.
What procedures?
He knows like the police procedures. He knows, what would happen. You know, maybe people would recognize him. Oh, cop! Did you see what happened down there? No.
Well, police procedures of the time, their investigations involved catching the perpetrator red-handed.
Yeah.
That was it. They caught you red-handed. Oh, you're captured. You're under arrest. Investigating and detecting this stuff didn't really exist, which is why Aberline
Hmm.
was so unique at the time.
Yeah.
Because he was one of the new breed of detectives. But for the most part, the police didn't have anybody like that.
No.
Certainly not the guys in charge. Those jokers couldn't have found a murderer with a map. But
I'm sorry, all through the movie, all I could picture was the Monty Python. Hello, hello, hello. What's going on here then?
what's all this then?
It's a great topic. I mean, it's,
Mhm.
you know, in a way, it's probably better we don't know who it is. It
Why
takes,
else would we talk about it?
yeah. I mean, if tomorrow morning Scotland Yard said, okay, here's the paperwork, here's all the proof, there'd be like a big buzz for a couple of weeks, and then it would be thrown on the ash heap of history.
Yeah, exactly. So instead, Jack is eternal.
Yes. And that's probably what the murderer wanted. I mean, if the guy was seeking fame and fortune, or not fortune, but if the guy was seeking fame, you know, he's got it. How many people are talking about 5 murders of prostitutes 140 odd years later?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a great line in the movie that gets repeated where Jack says, I gave birth to the 20th century.
Yeah. Yeah. I did love that line. That was so.
And in a way, he's right.
Yeah.
Because the 20th century was an extraordinarily violent century.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, aside from the 2 world wars, which, hello.
Yeah.
Um,
Trench warfare, nuclear weapons, blitzkrieg,
all the pogroms going on,
concentration camps, the violence that went to
Soviet purge,
the racial insensitivity in the South. I mean, look at the rise in our own criminal elements. Dahmer, Ed Gein,
Gacy, all that. There's a reason we know a lot more about serial killers now than they did in 1888.
Yeah.
Because we've had a shitload of them.
Yeah. And that's, like I said, why I love that movie from time after time. When he tells Herbert Wells or H.G. Wells, this is my time. I belong here.
Yep, that case could be made.
Yeah.
But in any event, this brings us to the hour.
Yes.
So what do you got going on, Scott?
I am finishing up. I'm about halfway through the first round of edits on the Chronicles of Paul 2. Gonna start working on Nurse Alyssa 9, and I'm trying to get before Christmas. I want to take the Rada World trilogy and put it into a box set.
There you go.
Put a 1 box set, make it inexpensive, and that way it makes a perfect Christmas gift. Hint, hint, hint.
Shake hands with the devil. I think I heard that one. I'll add it to my extensive list.
Yeah. And Jeff, what are you doing?
This Saturday, I believe. Saturday.
No, I think it's
Friday. This Friday. Epic Mayhem #1. Welcome to the City.
Yeah.
Becomes available on Amazon. It's available in paperback now. I've had so much fun writing this thing. And the people who've read it are just laughing their asses off. It's so over the top violent. It's this basically what I did is those great action movies from the 80s.
Yeah.
The Schwarzenegger and everybody.
Yeah.
Were so much fun. And that's really all they were. Is they were fun. Because the people who made them didn't take themselves too seriously.
No.
I mean, Stallone firing off 30,000 rounds without ever running out of ammo.
Yeah.
Hitting everything he aimed at, while the people firing at him couldn't hit the side of Mount Everest. And every now and then something would explode for no apparent reason.
Yeah. And the great one-liners. I'll be back.
Oh, and the great one-liners.
I
Yeah.
am the law.
Stick around. I come in peace. Go in pieces. Awesome.
I'm looking forward to that book. I really am.
That's what Epic Mayhem is. I wanted to create a universe that was all action movie all the time. And I think I've done it, at least according to people who've read it so far.
Okay.
So we'll see. And I think you'll like your death.
Yeah, I hope so. As long as it's bloody, violent, and gory, I'll be happy.
It's protracted.
Ooh, even better. My wife will enjoy that.
Well, plus I've already said I'm bringing you back in this one so I can kill you off again.
All right.
That's
Now,
the beauty of this.
if I can come back in the third book and be killed off a third time.
Now, speaking of which, I killed off 20 readers from Asylum of Fear in the first book. In the second one, my goal is 25. I have 19 names. I need 6 more volunteers. There's posts in the Asylum of Fear group. I'll put another one up. Volunteer and your death will be epic.
Mention Jack the Ripper and you'll get an extra gory death.
And we may leave your guts lying everywhere.
Yeah.
Just for fun.
Yeah.
But that comes out Friday.
Good.
And second one is going along well. You saw it, but I guess I saw that. I saw that, Tim. Looked good. Couldn't quite tell what it was about. At least the whole story, but it was. I like the way you laid it out there. So yes, next Saturday will be yet another episode of The Padded Room. And I promise we won't be talking about Flat Earth. As our brethren in a certain other podcast were stuck talking to.
I say there's no flat Earth because if there was, cats would have pushed everything off of it by now.
The answer is obvious.
Yes.
I particularly like the latest meme, which is the first annual Flat Earth Surfing Championships.
Yeah.
19 died.
Like Christopher Columbus said to Queen Isabella, the world is round, you're a flat. That's why he had to get out of England. Out of Spain.
Yeah, real fast.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you all for showing up. Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Tim.
Chiming in. You're awesome. Thank you, Scott.
My pleasure. I love these shows.
Oh, so do I. And we will see you again in 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
If you guys have suggestions to what you would like us to talk about, by all means, we're wide open to suggestion. Or bribes.
Yeah.
Bribes are okay. Take it easy, folks. We'll see you next time.
All right. Ciao, everyone.